Today, we're going to visit the dark side of mindfulness. Mwahaha. Okay, maybe that's a bit dramatic. But while mindfulness will definitely lead to all of the good stuff I spoke of in my How Mindfulness Helps video, being mindful also means being fully aware of and present for everything that's going on in our life. Life just isn't always fun and games. Sometimes it's painful, it's frustrating, and it's uncomfortable. And often when we first begin practicing mindfulness, or a decade into it, it might seem like there's no benefit to it. It's just making our life worse. We feel so much more anxious and sad, lonely, stuck. But we aren't actually. It's really just calling attention to everything that we were avoiding before. This is where we tend to give up because who wants to feel all that crap? However, if we can stay as present as possible with that discomfort, I promise it will shift and change and move through us so that it ultimately lessens and we get all that good stuff I was talking about. Depression, anxiety, and long-standing anger are stuck emotions. We aren't allowing the sadness, fear, and anger to move through us as it happens. Emotions are meant to be transient, to provide us with information so that we can take appropriate action. So if we don't actually pay attention to them and act on the information they give us, they'll just stick around bugging us until we're left with absolutely no other choice. It's like if there was a zombie apocalypse and our neighbors were running to our house for shelter. They're going to keep knocking and knocking until we let them in, or the zombies eat them. But just like zombies, we don't want our emotions to get the best of us. We want to welcome them. We want to feel them, and we want to deal with them so we can move forward. There have been some recent studies coming out warning about this dark side of mindfulness. And I'll be honest, I haven't read through them thoroughly enough yet to know if there actually is a dark side. I personally have some doubts because my initial impression is that they seem to be filled with judgment that our so-called negative emotions or experiences such as anxiety, depression, or panic attacks are things that we shouldn't be experiencing. And many also seem to define mindfulness in different ways. So that makes it more difficult to know if we're even talking about the same thing. Maybe at some point I'll do a more thorough review of the research on here if that's something you're interested in. But really for the time being, I just want to emphasize that there are not actually good or bad emotions or good or bad experiences. Of course, some are more comfortable and preferable than others, but ultimately, all emotions are important and exist to share information with us and those around us. Labeling them as good or bad can create unhealthy relationships with our emotions, which leave us stuck. I'm saying all of this because I'm about to start a longer series of videos on mindfulness of emotions, since emotions are one of the most difficult experiences to be present with. There are just so many misconceptions and myths floating around about them, and our society really likes to avoid them in any form. Plus, they are quite physically uncomfortable. But we're gonna have to make friends with them anyway. I will start with the history and science behind them. We'll learn how to notice and be present with them. And then how do we use them for our advantage? I'm not saying that there isn't a downside or things that we don't like about emotions, but if we avoid the darkness, then we don't get to experience the light. Ugh, that was really cheesy. But seriously, we cannot know joy and peace without the sadness, fear, and anger. And there are times to distract ourselves, which I'll also get into at some point. But too much distraction becomes avoidance, and we can't avoid forever. We'll just experience all those things we don't want to anyway, just much more intensely and for longer. So if you would like to learn more about your emotions, how to be mindful and present with them, and transform them, transforming your life, tell me what you'd like to know in the comments below, and subscribe to this channel to be the very first to know when the next video is posted.